Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we're back to Myst 5. And yeah, there's definitely something weird, I think, in particular, about the setup I have and the audio causing echoing. It seems like it actually only happens when I'm streaming, uh, which is weird. So the whole audio setup, which I is driving me crazy, uh, is like a maze where it's very easy to get in and out of the maze, but there's only actually one correct path, and that's about the closest analogy. I think I have fixed something, and it will be. Uh, we'll have to wait until we get somebody talking to us, which probably won't be that long, to see if maybe we should turn the voice volume back up. Inherently, I suspect the audio mode here being in software might be part of the problem. That this is just such an old DirectX 9 game that it's directly hooking into the sound hardware in some weird way, perhaps in an attempt to make a more 3D audio stereoscape. Now, I thought we'd go to the main menu in between each level, but in between each episode, but yeah, it takes a little long to load, so we'll just start here. You're almost certainly going to be safe, regardless. This is supposed to be our first area, but I will, I guess, only spoil it a little bit. Let's go back to where we were and look in the other section that we didn't look at. Like, in fact, we missed quite a bit here because I didn't look at this video recorder either. So let's watch that.
Oh! How could this be? On their backs, this fallen empire was built. Hypocrisy. Such abuse of power. I think they even deluded themselves into believing their own lies. It pains me to the point of ill. It makes me pleased that they are dead. What hate is in me.
So you get a video there showing you Yisha, although it's hard to even really tell. You can barely even see the face tattoo. And obviously it's a full motion video of just somebody in a dark room. You would have kind of expected something like this much earlier in the game, as far as something from Atris, perhaps, talking. But this particular video, if anything, hints that Yisha is crazy, which seems to run in Atris's family quite a bit. But yeah, we didn't even go over here. The major fans of Myst almost certainly could recognize this dunny writing and read what it says, but for the most part, I have to assume that this is either an unfinished hallway, because this is a little too smooth to be a cave-in, or it is a hallway designed like this. Although, in the weirdness around the ages is that in a descriptive book, you very well might write an age that has a broken, jagged wall as part of your description, and then the age will just be created that way instead of actual human interaction or nature eroding the wall. But we've got a switch here. What looks like might be a door, might be a generator. We've got an open doorway here, and then you've got a light in the center, so your desire would be to walk in the center. And we'll get another
I apologize for the goggles
dialogue
earlier, but my eyes are not accustomed to the sun in this age. I have taken this same journey, this same quest, and failed. I'm not proud of my failure. Yet I think that what I learned will be useful in your quest. Your journey continues through that door.
So, depending whether you went left or right would determine how quickly you saw different cutscenes. And that seems like that's probably how this is all going to work, is that you will find a location, have somebody talk to you, then move to another location. We haven't actually gotten to any puzzles yet. We haven't actually gotten into any gameplay mechanic. Now, when we were in the other age, we didn't have the earthquakes, but obviously in this age we do have it. Of course, as soon as you have one cutscene, you'll find a book and have some more dialogue read to you. It's a very minimal game, even for a Myst game.
The stranger.
I do like that it's voiced,
again to help
but
father save
I want
mother.
some puzzles here.
Imagine a stranger traveling to Riven, risking all, asking for nothing. I think of humility, thinking more of others. Humility. Prisoners are freed by nothing more and nothing less. Again, my grandfather, my heritage. Ugh. That monster who thought himself a god was once again imprisoned. Perhaps he still rules that desolate, empty, and dead place, riven by the pride and bitterness of his own heart. But more likely, he is in another desolate, empty, dead place where there is weeping. I hope he is miserable. I cannot forgive him for what he did. It eats at my heart. I hate him because I have his same desires. Mother and father came again together to the refuge, to Myst Island. But it was only a shell, a place to exist. A fallen place, torn apart by pride, just as the great Denis city was. Just as I am. Torn. What is a stranger? Someone who is not me? Yet sometimes I feel like a stranger to myself. I become two, one who I know and one who I do not. Where does this other one come from? Which one is me?
So it really comes off like Yisha just lost her mind in loneliness. Although we also really don't know how old she is or what the timeline really is. I wouldn't be surprised if Atrus's family live hundreds if not thousands of years. And since every location we visit is a old age that is mostly empty, it could be 1,000,000 years old, it could be a few decades or old. You can't just click on the door to open it, so one would assume that this door opens that. Standing in the light just gives us a convenient place to turn around in circles. Let's see what we can do if we open this door. Nothing. It's an interactable object that's not actually interactable. This one I had to click and drag, but then the camera doesn't like take it doesn't shift your view so you can actually look. What would be interesting if this just somehow connected to a sewer in the earth, these tiles and this metal feeling. It almost feels like that could be the case. And then at great risk here, I think we're going to end up walking to the bottom to find nothing and have to come back up.
Regaro, Tigua. The great shaft. Amazing, is it not?
It's not showing us
Built
the
by
shaft.
those from beneath, my people. I am Dakhni. It was this shaft that permitted the great-grandmother of Yisha to find our deep city. Rather than bore you with tedious details, you need only know this. She killed us all, and the great Dakhni city lies lifeless and ruined. There is a room at the end of this first elevator. A small room with a Dakhni rest age book for the Dakhni who would have traveled this path. The book will link you to Direbo. I will come to you there.
So it's probably a linking book to the area we were already in. But yeah, you can't walk to the edge. And this is where perhaps free roam might be helpful. But you can't really look over the edge. So if Dunny is deep underground, then Earth is just up there. Although, as much as they may have teased it in a place or two, as far as actually interacting with Earth, you never do in the Myst series, which is kind of a shame. And I guess if you were going to reboot the series, it might make some sense. Although you probably would do it in such a way that it would be in some kind of far-flung future where humans are extinct. So we just sent something downward. I guess in case we end up going down that way, you would almost think that these arches or doorways or something. Nope. Well, it definitely could be worse. It could just be a stairway where you would go in circles forever, which it does kind of feel like there is that as an option too. Well, yeah. Bit of a time waster here, obviously. So they stop you from actually being able to walk all the way around down to the bottom where Dunny is. So I guess the story goes here that the great-grandmother is human, then Atris and all of her descendants are human too. They just learned the creation aspect of making Myst description books and Myst linking books. Which, okay, I guess that tells us something. We have a whole cinematic transition, which Myst games have been known for that. Although, usually the transition videos show you from inside looking out for a cinematic transition instead of having the camera look at you from the outside. And notice how they move the camera in such a way you couldn't actually see the player character. And yeah, I suspect this resting room is all we're going to be able to really access. Although, maybe you can just get another elevator. Seems like the elevators go downward, then they come back up. And we have yet another book.
To Mana, my home. The place where I was, the place where I began. I was a spark of joy to Mother and Father, after their fire was almost quenched. And yet what joy could we have had if my brothers had been there as well? Still torn. Father and Mother loved and shared with me their desert bird. Father shared wisdom and knowledge, and Mother shared visions and dreams. When did they come to know my destiny? Surely not from birth. As I look back, they knew so much, they saw so clearly. They planted and watered so that I would learn how to do the same. I would not realize it until long after I was to see them no longer. Am I the grower because they taught me? Or did they teach me because I am the grower? Torn. But peace was not yet with us. From the past, an enemy came seeking revenge, but there was help for a third time. Without help, where would we be? Would there be a grower? Would there be a seed to grow? It's all been so fragile. But it must be by the Maker I am here, and there is meaning. Or it may be by the role I am here, and there is no meaning.
I think with that, the music here is a little loud. So let's turn the voice, I guess, back up to max and see what that would sound like. See if we can pull up that same audio.
To Mana, my home. The place where I was, the place where I began. I was a spark of joy to my...
So, going forward, we found the book out of order, which I don't think it really matters. For the most part, this is just recapping the events of the other Myst games and giving perhaps some new context in it. Again, there's a break here, so you can't just walk your way down. So we probably should check things out when we, instead of walking by them. It's going to be too easy to miss things otherwise. So this resting room looks exactly like the resting room we've already been in. Very copy and paste, and textures are very generic and just not... I'm not really feeling the love and care you would have seen in Myst 1 or Riven, and even Myst 3 and Myst 4 had a lot more visual polish to rooms and decoration. This is probably the book we missed. It's just a pillow and a blanket with perhaps different colors on it.
I am sick of the grower. Oh yes, some believe in prophecies that predict the restoration of Denis. The fallen city of Denis would grow. There were attempts before, and there will be attempts again. They always fail. Even those led by my father tried. They learned great things of the Maid and the Maker. They learned of the Barrow, of the least, and of deeper truths. They learned of Father and his wisdom in rebuilding and rewriting. The Denis city came alive again for a time. The dead were properly buried and the living were properly cared for. Denis took short, labored breaths. Sap flowed, though the tree did not grow, for there was no grower. Even Father did not see then as I do now. The grower had not come. I had not come. I am the grower. I failed. And I think of myself as worthy. I am nothing. The failed child of failed parents of failed grandparents. How many generations must fail before we give up? Why do I try? I have failed with the tablet already. There are no second chances here. And yet I long to hold it and try once more.
So you're in particularly a weird position with the tree and the grower, because that's all stuff that would have been in Uru. So the timeline, obviously, is to play Uru before you play the 5th game. But where you end Uru kind of on a triumph of her potentially bringing Dunny back to life, it seems like now that all failed. And yeah, that does also imply that Ishu, the male guy, may not be an original Dunny citizen. He may very well have just been a surface-dwelling earthling that is using Dunny as his new home. There was some kind of magical calling to people. So this is a different section, and we know there's gates for each of these fast travel sections, but since linking books only take you to one place back and forth, it's from point A to B and from point B to point A, the only thing different could be this tablet here that takes us to another location. For the most part, I imagine we're not going to be using these linking books much once we unlock this whole section and these gates, and we'll just walk back and forth between each other. See, that's where we were before, and now we are here, and I imagine we're not getting the cutscene because we've already seen it with Eshu. So we've unlocked 2 locations, which I do get the feeling I could potentially solve this entire game fairly quickly. I guess that's in part because there isn't any puzzles so far that we've really run into. This feels far too much like the single-player experience of playing Myst Online, or Uru, in that this feels like a world that would only make sense if there was people and more interactive objects, or people to make up for the fact that there aren't enough interactive objects. I do think the visuals here probably look a lot better than Uru. Inherently, though, Uru as a concept, trying to be an MMO based around puzzles, is setting yourself up for failure. Obviously, it's too much work. Whereas now when you look at your average MMO or game as a service, it is almost always exclusively grindy, repetitive RPG elements that are easy to make, very open fields that are easy to make, where you can spawn in random enemies for grindy, repetitive RPG gameplay. And there's a reason for all of that, and it's not 100% laziness. It also has to do with practicality.
Stand in awe. The surface is 3 miles above us. 3 miles. Our construction is triumphant and tragic. You will not be able to continue downward without providing fresh air to the tunnels. Raise this floor and power the fans. I trust you can discover how.
Finally, we have a actual puzzle and some guidance to a puzzle. Are these spinning columns supposed to be fans? Or are these supposed to be fans? I guess we'll figure it out. At best, I would guess if you have something like maybe Minecraft or Roblox, probably a little bit closer to Roblox, Uru could have been something like that, but you're talking decades as ahead of a concept there, and be decades ahead of where the technology would have needed to be. It just wasn't ever practically going to happen. They wanted to make an MMO where people barely had modems and the internet. It was far, far too ambitious. And even though Myst is very groundbreaking, it's kind of groundbreaking for storytelling narratives more than it is groundbreaking for technical achievements. It did push the idea of CD-ROMs existing and being in personal computers with very big soundtracks and install files, but yeah, they basically got into probably one of the earliest scenarios of development hell. We think of things like Duke Nukem Forever, where they were constantly trying to add more and more technology and make it work, but yeah, Myst Online beats Duke Nukem Forever by many, many years. So we just walked next to the least and we just walked away. You would hope that you don't accidentally walk downward into some stale, toxic air. That would be a problem, certainly building something underground. The tile work here is nicer looking, but the color palette definitely could use some more work. Dull red on dull browns. It's not great. Okay, well, there's really no reason to not press a button when you see a button. So, I guess this is the fan. This has a blue symbol there. Everything being cryptic and puzzle-like does make an interesting question as to why it is the case. So you've got a timer, and you can't click the button again. So do I want to hear the clink, clink, clink while reading this?
I was very young when I first felt strong. Indeed, I was young, but I thought I understood. I had many abilities, even then, but little wisdom. Better to have fewer abilities and much wisdom. I knew I was doing something great for us, but what I did was foolish for me. I thought I was reuniting our family, bringing back what joy we once had. I almost brought an end to life. Yet again, it was a friend who came to our aid. Now, I think that most things cannot be returned to how they were. My brothers were not to be released, but the Maker turned my poor choice to some small good. and Aknar was redeemed. My tears flow as I write these memories, the suffering and pain I have caused and endured, and yet I am thankful. I will be powerful like the Barrow. I long to be so strong. They will sing a song of thankfulness. They will sing a song without regard to their circumstances. They will stand and take time to sing to the Maker with hearts of joy. If only I could have such a heart.
So I imagine each of these symbols is a hint on a solution of a puzzle later. And every time she mentions a friend, that's you. You're the friend, the only friend they apparently ever interact with or know. So yeah, this is a time puzzle, although it gave you quite a bit of time. So I imagine the trick is to just run to the other side, and you can hear it clanking, but getting quieter, and push the button here. And then we'll run towards the center and see if we need to push the button in the middle. Yes, we do. So, a timing puzzle more than anything. Camera control has been taken away from me as we now move this platform up higher. I was thinking we were going to turn on fans, but apparently not. We're hearing the timer still go. So my guess is we're supposed to go back down and loop around. Nope. There's a whole nother section here, which I guess maybe that means we are on the other side with these two edges, and we could have only gone the other way. Okay. And yet another book.
Alone. There is a powerful conjunction between the in and the out, the beneath and the above. A wound, a mouth, a well, a pit. I wanted to make the journey for myself from where the Denis dug upward, where they almost came to the surface, from the place where Tiana first climbed downward and where Father followed evil into the ground. I began my journey with a heavy burden. It was Tiana who came to Denis and caused its fall. I am from her. I feel I am destined to bring another destruction. Father and Mother tried to prepare me, tried to tell me who they thought I was. I still see the power of each. I have the best of each, and the burden of each. And as they watched me leave, I saw the sadness and the fear. But more terrifying, I saw their hope. And I left my comfort to find me. And even as I took my first step away from Tomana, my shoulders ached for the burden I bore. Deep prophecies and weighty destinies. So much to learn and understand about myself. My father said we can never understand, we can only understand more. The more I understood, the more powerful I became. And the more dangerous I became, and the less I understood.
So we only have 4 more of these, and it really does just come off like they should be telling us the story of Tiana. Although in all fairness, I would have kind of liked it if there was just no Atris family involvement at all after Riven, and instead it was just, yes, there's these magical lands and Atris created a bunch of them, but that doesn't matter. I wonder if these are supposed to be like bathrooms. But yeah, it all cycling around the same 5 generations of family doesn't make it feel like a very fleshed out world. And Myst worlds are supposed to be the exact opposite of that. They should be very, very fleshed out, and they should have a lot of details, and they definitely shouldn't be repeated. What's funny, even on Uru, there wasn't a lot of repetition like this. It might have made some sense in an online game to have repeated rooms, but yeah. So this will get us to a 3rd area. And I kind of think all the puzzles are really through the tablets. But it does seem very valid to see. That gate is the last one to unlock. It seems like a good gameplay mechanic or method to just open all these pathways and enjoy the introductory area. But yeah, in a lot of ways you could have just started on one of these islands and had Yisha talk to you and then send you to a more puzzle location. Let's see what's recorded here.
What will I become? I will make something more of me. I will rebuild what I am. Is there anyone who is master over me? Have I not become the grower? The grower. Yet all I grow is anger. Watching them call, watching them fail, waiting, watching. I am the grower. How can I wait much longer on such fools?
It's funny that the mouse pointer disappears if you just stay still during at least the cutscenes. I don't know if it actually disappears outside of cutscenes. It does. Weird. Now there's a possibility here that there's some kind of trick if you like click
What
or
will I
hold.
become? I will make something more of me. I will rebuild what I am. Is there anyone who is master over me?
But apparently not. And you can see the subtitles are still playing even though I can't hear the voice playing over the music. So this is perhaps too simplistic of a puzzle to just flip the switch. You would think that you would have to perhaps adjust these pipes in some way first. Are we done with the subtitles? I guess we are. It sounds more like water than it does air. And I question why we needed to turn on the air vents if we had already reached a certain location. So then we're gonna cross back over here. And then work our way back down, unless there's a door that would stop us. That's something I think Myst Online also had a problem with, was in a lot of cases you needed to lock a single player or a group of players into a room so other players wouldn't arrive and perhaps reset a puzzle in the wrong configuration where it couldn't be solved. There is a mobile game, it's came out a few years ago, where it's supposed to be puzzles, and what it does is it brings in online players regardless whether you want to or not have them, and before you're even through the first tutorial room where you just have to light a couple of candles to open a door, some other random player will light the candles and open the door for you. And inherently I think that is another problem with the idea of multiplayer puzzling. Although we have seen some games where it's like co-op puzzling and one player is in one location and the other player is in another location. But as we've mostly heard voice recordings so far, written books, this game almost is like a prototypical BioShock game, where you can see BioShock did it a lot better by having recordings that you just start playing as soon as you pick it up, and then you can run around and shoot and kill the splicer enemies, which notably there are no splicer enemies or anything like that in this game. It would be kind of weird if there were, but it wouldn't be that crazy if there were some kind of monsters, if the Least were attacking you, if you had to hide from them because they would like knock you downward or something. Even if there was just humans that would attack you every now and then. So we turned on the vents, and I think that opened this door, or put us in a situation where we could open the door. Either that, or I'm supposed to push the button and then run away. It feels like we've seen these doors and they had a lever to open them, and it was on the right side, but I don't see a way you could get up to that, and I guess I'll double check and see if there's something here. It might be that I've misinterpreted what I did, and that I just need to start the countdown timers again. It seems like that's going to be the only option anyways. Wouldn't put it past myself to accidentally miss a switch too. Come on. Hearing a bunch of clicking, and you would think there might be something over here. Notably, a modern game would probably have a hint system. This does look to me like it's blue where it was red before. See, it's now not lit up. So if you are going to push the button, you do have to have both of the timers going. But I've either not turned on the air conditioner or I've turned on the fans, or I've missed a lever somewhere. Alright, well, suppose we have no other choice than to push the button in the middle. Either that or we abandon this whole area and we start trying to solve the rest of the worlds. This point and click interface is not good enough, really, for fast movement puzzles like this. And honestly, I don't think it would be much better in any of the other controller interfaces. You out of this section. Now you can see his sun. And it's just pointing downward because there's metal ladders. Although it's very disconcerting to so smoothly climb down a ladder and not have a single sound effect. But we figured it out. Actual little puzzle there. Not much of a puzzle, but something.
Home was far behind. I was no longer a child. I journeyed deep, deep within myself, deep within the earth, down to the Denis cavern. I was alone for a time as I consumed my heritage, breathing deep the air of the cavern and the knowledge of my people. But the desire for companionship drove me mad. I engaged a Cenomar as my confidant, and a treadfish in the harbor became my younger brother. I spoke to them as family, and they answered. I swear, they answered. Then my mind took a final step into madness when I walked into the library on Agura and saw an old Denis man on the floor below me. Now I was imagining people to ease my loneliness. But he was no mirage. His name was Callum, and he was a Denis writer of ages. Trust did not come easily. There was conflict between us, between his ancient rules of Denis that I did not respect, and my creativity, which he feared. We fought and feared and battled and screamed until exhausted. We began to learn from each other. We learned of the power of both, just as father and mother had done. So I learned to write with all the skills that the Denis had known, beyond what my parents had taught me, for their lessons were given by a flawed instructor and by their own trial and error. I learned to write from a master, an opportunity Father was never given. Callum's abilities were breathtaking. He knew all the Denis knew when Denis fell. But I taught as well as learned. There were things that the Denis were forbidden to write, words they feared, concepts they shunned, rules and boxes. I had no cultural fear of such things, so I dug deeper, asking questions that Callum could not answer. And together, we sought answers. That is how we learned of the Barrow and the tablet. I learned of its power. We grew in knowledge and strength, and Callum became one of my dearest friends. I began to think that it was he who would be the grower. But evil will find you, even in the depths of the earth, when Callum was murdered.
So you've got some writing here. Maybe that's Callum's name. So there's a whole character she basically was in love with, it seems, and he gets murdered. A murder mystery in a Myst game wouldn't be terrible of a concept. Certainly you could try several different genres of different types of tales in a world with puzzling environments. Am I supposed to, look up this hole? I guess not. I suspect maybe this was the part that would have been blocked if the fans weren't turned on. Or maybe we're not done turning on the air vents. You would think that there would be more of a puzzle here. Again, we're just flipping switches. Then we have a cutscene. Of just a ladder opening. That's not much. So it was a red herring that we would go through the door. The switch for the door is on the other side. Well, I think this is probably as good of a place as any to end this episode. As far as conversations, we really haven't had that much. And as far as books, we've made a pretty decent amount of progress on this. It's basically at this point, though, that you're getting any story that would have been past the events of Uru. Whereas the rest of these are really just recapping and telling you the events of the previous games, which this game is failing in comparison. Really, there's not enough life when you think about the Myst ages, and maybe we will see it later, but I haven't seen any world that is more nature-based with trees and plants. I've not seen anything that feels like a mechanical age. I've not seen anything that feels like there's a big ocean or a beach. We've been underground, and underground is frankly boring visually, and we've been in this same location and not done enough traveling that it's really not locking into the idea of having a wanderlust to just want to travel and go to different locations. Whereas if you were to reboot the Myst series right now, you would clearly have at least a dozen ages of very different locations, very different textures, very different types of trees and lifestyles, and you could probably purchase pre-made textures a lot easier at like the Unreal Engine store or the Unity Asset store, and that would make developing a game like Myst way easier. But inherently you still run into the problem with puzzles, where most people don't want to do puzzles. And if you get back to my comparison to Bioshock, which is admittedly a very weird comparison, there are some puzzle elements in Bioshock 1, but they're completely skippable, and that's the case for most games that aren't puzzle games. That most people are given options to skip them, and they do skip them. Whereas if you skipped the small puzzles we've done here, which was maybe one or two so far, we would have lost any gameplay mechanic at all. Anyways, I guess we'll end it here. That's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to support me further, there's some links down below in the description box. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.